Hello.
Hi.
Hi, I'm Leo Marcus. We're twins. I'm 2 minutes older than him.
Hi, I'm Sammy Marcus, and even though he's 2 minutes older, I'm 2 inches taller.
That's what it looks like to me too. Thank you so much for agreeing to meet me this way, Rich. Just come home from school and surviving a nasty flu bug. So I appreciate you making the effort.
Thank you.
Well, congratulations on all the attention you're getting from the public, from other media, from your science project. Our listeners probably have experienced the phenomenon that you researched, which is really loud, noisy bathroom equipment. I personally have as well, and especially those hand dryers, which are like being on back of an airplane engine. Um, I want to ask you before you tell me how you went through the methodology. Has anybody else in the world, in scientific journals or whatever, studied this issue that you know of? And if so, where?
So, our project is the first of its kind. The only
As far as we know.
the closest project that we have found like this was by Nora Louise Keegan, a grade 8 student from
From Calgary, who did a project like ours, but only on hand dryers, roughly 10 years ago. There have been other projects on hand dryers and other studies. However, they have not been as large and they have not necessarily gotten conclusive evidence in the past for hand dryers. However, we have not noticed for any of the other kinds of devices we decide to test for this project. We have not noticed a study somewhere that has also covered them.
So this is the first time that toilets, paper towel dispensers, and urinals have been tested in this way.
Not the soap ones, right? The electric soap ones too. You didn't do those.
No,
we didn't do
those.
those.
Where did you go? How many bathrooms and how many buildings? And tell me a little bit about the actual sort of nuts and bolts of how you did this.
So we went to community centers, schools, universities, libraries,
Restaurants.
residences for toilets, and
And our local synagogue.
to see if
Actually, two local synagogues. We tested 628 devices and made 1,277 measurements. We could probably come up with a number of individual buildings and washrooms we went to, though we haven't actually recorded them in any already compiled way.
How
but it's
come?
probably over 500.
Right. And did you have to get permission first, or you just kind of secret shoppered it, you know?
It
So-
depends upon the location.
Yeah, so some locations, depending on where they were, we would ask to see if we could go in and use their bathrooms for this, and some areas we didn't because
Well,
it wasn't necessary.
at our school, essentially, we tell our science teacher we would like to go and test for a science fair project, and then we go to the bathroom and we test for our science project. So that was one method. Another method was kind of, okay, we have pretty much universal permission to just wander around as long as we don't break stuff. Let's wander into the bathroom with our testing equipment.
Do you have your equipment with you that I could see it?
We don't have all of it because a lot of it is just paper, but we do have our decibel meter, which measures sound.
We set it to max for a 5 to 10 second duration, 30 to 35 centimeters away from the bowl at our max setting, so it records the loudest sound. And right now, we're at around 81 max decibels.
And what are we now talking? What do you now? What is it saying now?
79, 80.
81, around there.
So
Yeah.
so we're just having a conversation over Zoom. What was the loudest piece of equipment in a bathroom that you found? And
We
what about the
found-
most, like median?
Oh, the median
That really depends
on the device.
a lot of devices. It depended on the type. For toilets, for tankless toilets, it was roughly 68 decibels. For tank toilets,
No, it was sorry, between 85 and 100 decibels, 68.3% was in that, and that is the percentage where hearing protection is mandatory. I think that's safe for Manitoba. Tank toilets, mostly they were safe with
roughly around 80 decibels ish.
Flush urinals were 79.8% below 85 decibels, but waterless urinals were completely safe.
With those landing in between 60 and 80 decibels.
Jet hand dryers were pretty much universally between 85 and 100 decibels and above.
Normally around 105 decibels.
So those were extremely loud.
All other hand dryers landed around 90 or so decibels most of the time.
But pre-fold paper towel dispensers were almost completely safe. But the loudest device we measured was a hand dryer that measured
128 decibels. As you said earlier, though I don't think you actually meant it as it is, it's about as loud as a jet engine.
And where was this one? Do you know? Can you say?
It was on the 3rd floor of the Drake building, second from the left.
What's the Drake building?
It's
the law building of the University of Manitoba.
So that's the loudest bathroom thing you found in your whole city?
Yes.
Did you ever go into a movie theater? Those bathrooms are super loud.
No,
we were not unable to test movie theaters. Partly because he really hates movies.
And partly because
it's also too loud for you too, I suppose, right?
And also because there isn't that many movie theaters in our city, and well, there's some, but it's hard to they're also very far apart, so it would be
difficult.
And you also have to pay to go in, like the bathroom
Yes.
after the ticket area, right?
Yes.
Not the public library. So is there any difference between boys' bathrooms or male bathrooms and female? Is it louder in a male bathroom? You were talking about these urinals, or is there any gender difference?
We found that it's mostly the same.
However, the extremely loud devices for toilets, the loudest ones were actually the first toilets we tested as like our pilot study a few years ago.
That was after our pilot.
Or yeah. Our first few devices which produced sounds that were over 115 decibels that were in the boys' bathroom at our elementary school, Rock Cordon. But we did not find an extreme change overall, other than that one instance of extremely loud bathroom.
So boys, girls is no difference because of the urinal issue is what I mean.
Yeah, the urinal does affect it, but not by that much.
And the way decibels work, 2 different sources do not add together to create a louder sound. So if you add a urinal and it produces dangerous sound levels, that's a problem. But if you add a safe urinal, that's not going to change if you have a dangerous kind of other device.
It doesn't stack in that way. Like it does stack.
So you're cumulatively in the room as opposed to by device, is what you're trying to explain, right? Okay. So our listeners probably have all had this experience, and I wonder what strategies you recommend for people who have sensitivities. What works for you? What should people do?
So we suggest that, well, number one, if you have hearing sensitivity, you should try to use tank toilets like at your house. They have the white box behind it. They're usually in residential bathrooms. We suggest using pre-fold paper towel dispensers, which are
pre-folded.
Yeah, so they're already cut for you. And we also suggest using waterless urinals
if you were to be installing a waterless urinal somewhere.
And also be very wary of public washrooms you enter, and
be wary of general devices. The major difference in between our study and the study by Nora Louise Keegan is the difference of we recommend replacing devices with safer options, or trying to fix devices. However, the goal of our study was not to find a way of fixing the problem.
Well,
it
it
was to
was.
find the presence of the problem and the prevalence of the problem.
Her solution was to create something that would like retrofit the device and fix it that way. But our solution is to replace the device or to fix the components of the device and not add something to it.
No, that's great. What I meant in my question though was like a coping technique, or if you had to go into a bathroom and you encountered this, what works for people to get through this? Do you bring your own headphones? Do you use the family bathroom outside that only has one? I'm making this up, but I'm suggesting that's where I was going with this. You see what I mean? Can you try answer it?
Yeah, we suggest using hearing protection if you have hearing sensitivity.
I
But
personally wear noise canceling headphones, but other people might have other coping strategies. That was also not a real specific focus, but this is mine.
but we also suggest that you try to stay away if you have hearing sensitivity because it is still dangerous.
And what about, going to the family bathroom or the breastfeeding bathroom or, that kind of thing? Disabled bathrooms, you're allowed to, I suppose. No one's going to stop you, but there's only one toilet in there, right? Or doesn't matter?
It doesn't matter for the number of devices so much as whether each individual device is entirely safe. And if one device is activated and it's the only device in the entire room that is dangerous, that one device will cause harm to every single person in the washroom. Meaning it's better to just go into a washroom and that is entirely safe. Now, the chances of one washroom having all safe devices with only one device is not going to change much to a larger washroom with more devices.
So, but using a washroom that only has one device and you're the only person there means that while you're using that device, nobody else is creating dangerously loud sound, so it is safer. But it doesn't affect it if the one device that you are using is unsafe, it can still hurt your hearing.
And do you know, besides yourselves, other people who you've heard of that are impacted by this in your life? And tell me a little bit about that.
Well, the goal of our project was based on the fact that we and many other younger people, especially when the two of us were smaller, but also many of the young people we know had difficulties with being in public washrooms. And according to our mother, we sometimes covered our ears and ran out screaming. And the goal for our project was to figure out, is this actually scientifically harming people's ears? Or is it young people who do not like loud noises being disturbed?
And we have shown that washrooms are dangerously loud, and it's you should be right to feel unsafe because they can hurt your hearing. And when some people get older, they do have this hearing loss from hearing these sounds when they're younger. So they're less sensitive to them, but they're still dangerously loud. So by making changes to make them quieter, it means that everybody has better hearing.
And it's not just also the physical, it's also anxiety and triggering of emotional problems for people when you're going in. And so you just, did it ever happen in your life that you're just like, that's it, I'm going to hold it in until I get home?
Yes.
Definitely. I know that us and a lot of other people avoid public washrooms because they're loud, among other reasons, and that's just easier to wait.
Easier, except that's not good for you either.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you did this study, what was the reaction from your peers and friends? Because it sounds like you've been working on this project for a long time, not just for this year's science fair, right?
We have been working on this project for 3 years, so the idea is much older. The uh, e- 2 years ago, we worked on this project specifically and only working on studying toilets, and we found that toilets were dangerously loud. Last year, science fair became mandatory, so we decided why not extend the project and research urinals, and we found that they are dangerously loud, but only over the long term. And this year, we extended it to hand dryers and paper towel dispensers, just because we wanted a more comprehensive survey.
But we found that our classmates thought that we were crazy and the bathroom guys and would there was this one guy who when he saw us testing the bathrooms, he said to his friend, "Bro, they're testing the urinals," and then ran out screaming. And I find that a lot of people with their volcano projects don't really like they only do things that people have done before and they don't innovate and they are uh they
They-
don't
They don't necessarily try to be, okay, this is a problem somebody else has identified, they are testing it. Last year when I was presenting our previous version of this project, I got repeated questions about what is urine. Every time I stated calmly there was no urine involved. And there was even, so in previous years, we've been able to acquire temporarily valves of whatever device we were testing. So I got repeated questions about who ripped that particular valve off of the wall over
They all
and
blamed
over.
you for the problems the bathrooms are broken, right?
And they weren't even broken. They hadn't been installed yet. These were just kind of like defective parts that they're perfectly fine for presenting, but they've got all the right pieces. They're in the right places, except pieces won't actually work for being installed.
I'm sorry you had to put up with the bullying and the derision because it's a serious problem for a lot of people.
It wasn't even really bullying or derision. It was just like, I know you're not really interested and I know you want to know, but could you save your questions for the question period at the end, please?
Ah, they're just jealous. Look, I want to hear because going into public bathrooms could be completely gross and disgusting, I imagine. So I wondered, besides the noise, what weird or funny or remarkable memories do you have of actually being in some of these bathrooms that stays with you today that you could tell us?
So there's this one building in one of the engineering buildings of the University of Manitoba, and I particularly like it because it is at the end of 18 halls, turned 5 different ways in the middle of nowhere.
You get completely lost, and then you end up in this beautiful engineering building at the University of Manitoba.
And it's a very new bathroom, and I particularly like it because it's so quiet. Not that the devices were so quiet. I think they're between 85 and 90 decibels, but that it was so far away from everyone, and probably one person uses that bathroom every month, but it's such a nice, clean bathroom.
The other thing was,
So, okay, wait, because those the other ones that you've seen were disgusting. What was like the worst thing?
Yeah, there's at the Grand Park Mall in Winnipeg. It is very not nice.
It is absolutely disgusting, like horribly disgusting.
And
Smell,
like,
not so much not the
well, the
loudness.
hand dryers had duct tape on them, and some of them didn't work, and there was graffiti everywhere. And if it was my choice, I'd never go there again. But yeah.
It's crazy. Did you ever get in like somebody said, "Dudes, what are you doing?" Kick you out? Did you get in trouble at all, or like hurt?
Well,
or
we
challenged?
didn't. No one actually ever told us you are required to leave now, aside from one case where we were in a public library and the librarian told us when our father and the two of us were going into a washroom to test the toilet, the librarian said that only one person was allowed to enter the washroom at a time. And my dad informed the librarian that his sons, us, were testing for science fair, and the two of us at least had to go in there because it requires at least two people to do the test, and we wanted to know whether the devices in the washroom were dangerously loud. We went in and we were surprised to find that all the devices in that particular washroom were entirely safe sound-wise,
Yay for
which
quiet libraries. That's right.
which we happily informed the librarian after we were done testing.
Our dad acted as our chauffeur and key to the University of Manitoba for us because we would test on Saturdays and Sundays at weird hours, so nobody, like, we wouldn't bother anybody and we wouldn't have to retest so many times from other equipment being activated. So
We just kind of wandered around for hours in obscure places just because, we have the key to the buildings.
That's kind of a really powerful feeling. I mean, the other thing that Mom, I'm gonna ask this question. People might thought you guys were a little bit weird. Like, people aren't allowed to have recording devices and cameras in like community centers because, pornography, whatever, right? Or child protection. Did you have anybody that said, "What are you doing?" They thought it was like dangerous, or no?
she didn't come at all. She
Oh.
really isn't into the bathroom, but
You should tell them about going into Charlotte Zedek and how Daddy decided for.
oh
them.
yeah, we went to our local shul, Shared Zedek, and we sneaked in there because we weren't technically supposed to be there. And we were like on a spy mission, like looking out the hold the door and then running across the
So-
hall to get into the other one.
You weren't 13 yet, right?
Wow.
And Daddy's dad said, like, told them at the security that you're going to Minion, and then
Yes.
you all rushed into the bathroom.
Well,
But-
yes,
But now you've done your B'nai Mitzvah and you go to Minion, so you don't have to hang out in the bathroom.
yes.
But
That's a good story. I like that, Mom.
yeah, well, I told them afterwards because, it's not nice to sneak.
All right,
into
so
people.
Dish, which of the is the synagogue bathroom too loud too, or how would they?
No,
They use pre-filled paper towel dispensers, so you don't have to cut the paper during Shabbat. So it makes it much quieter, and they mostly have tank toilets, which are also quite quiet.
but they also happen to have the nice convenience of also having a lot of soundproof barriers just to avoid interruptions in other parts of the shul. So that probably also helped.
So they win for design.
Yes.
Did you test the JCC?
Yeah, we did.
Oh, you tested the JCC? All right, let's hear.
Yes, we did. Yes, we did.
We tested the JCC to see if those washrooms were dangerously loud. I wasn't there. I was at school, Sammy.
I can't remember what the reason was, but I went to the JCC and I with my mother, and at the time I didn't actually test any of the washrooms in the main part of the JCC for like regular community things. I actually just tested the washrooms in like the office section, which was both very peaceful. The devices were actually not particularly quiet, but it was also a very easy place to test because I put stuff down, I tried to arrange things as best as I could, and I did my test, and then I moved on to the next washroom, and no one interrupted me. I can't remember why. It was like a weird time of day or something, and it was just very convenient.
So you didn't do
Well-
anything for your bar mitzvah about this, like tikkun olam or whatever.
No, and we also tested at another no
Did we?
Chabad,
Oh, yeah, we also tested at Chabad.
which
I think was also pretty safe.
it was definitely safe.
Good job, Jewish institutions.
The other
That's your story, is besides the university's remote washroom in the engineering building, which, it's just engineers, they probably designed it nicely, the Jewish community bathroom. So if you need to go anywhere, people, you go to the Jewish buildings, right? To go to the bathroom.
well, yes, that one was it was 3, but other than that, it wasn't. Our project was not specifically tied to anything Jewish, mainly because we were kind of required to do it. But
You like to ask questions.
Well-
And that's a Jewish thing.
Okay.
But
Thanks,
Our
Mom.
mother says,
Our listeners may not have heard that, but the mom says asking questions could be a Jewish thing, which it is. The 4 questions you asked, more than 4. You asked how many? 500 questions. Where'd you get the device? I want to know that gizmo that you have there.
I think this one's from Amazon. It is a sound level meter. If I took this on, I could get
You
a
literally
more-
bought it for this project, right?
Yeah,
well, we bought it for this project. It didn't cost much, and it was
I think I don't know. It's a pretty nice one.
it's a pretty nice one, but it wasn't like supremely expensive, and it worked out for the whole.
You
We're
can
in
even-
6th grade. We need to do a science fair project. We're interested in it. Let's try and find a good option.
You can even use a phone app instead of this, but this is much more precise. So
It looks
and-
more professional too when you walk in, right?
yeah.
Well, yes, and it's also less likely for you to be asked, "Are you doing pornography?"
Exactly.
yeah.
That's what I meant before. Okay, so finally, what happens now? Do you win a prize like with cash money or a trophy?
So we won a gold medal.
Which is essentially
The best you can do. Well, it's a participation award, but the best you can do.
the gold medal is essentially a prerequisite for getting any other special award.
We also won best in category, which was for our age group, the best project in our category. We won the platinum award, which is best
Project.
project in our age division in all of
So we did our project in health and wellness, so that was the best in category. And then
platinum award is all of the categories for our age division. We also won the innovators award, which is I think $250.
and a special nice trophy and
From the University of Manitoba for having
a project based on a real world problem with real world applications and solutions.
as well as applications for the research.
That kind of thing.
Yeah.
3 paragraphs I
That's
wrote at
pretty
the end of
amazing.
science class.
Amazing, amazing. So now what happens on people in the science world or bathroom, like, I don't know, people who make toilets, have they reached Dyson? I don't know who makes those loud things, but is that the ones that they use, Dyson, those hand dryers that you stick your hands in? I don't know. Have they reached out to you at all, or are you sharing with them?
So no hand drying companies, toilet companies have talked to us specifically. But what's her name?
The Associate Vice Provost at the University of Manitoba has asked for information, or well, our testing information for future renovations at the University of Manitoba. And we're also planning on maybe talking to people in the government about extending some of the worker safety laws and possibly user safety laws for washroom equipment due to the fact that it is currently violating already established laws.
As well as turning our project into a research paper to show even more people that this is an issue.
That's unbelievable.
Unfortunately, as far as we can tell, there isn't really a good way of talking to a major washroom equipment company and telling them what they're doing wrong without being completely insulting. So,
Well, here's the thing. Bathrooms are designed like I'm in a studio here. It's got a lot of baffling. It has a lot of this eggshell, because you want to have sound absorbed. And bathrooms, I'm sure you all saw, they're all tiles and hard surfaces that reverberate. It makes it worse. So if you had just maybe some, like this person you quoted, retrofitting the room itself, putting a couple of eggshell baffling on the ceiling would help a lot, right? If they eventually they would change it, but right now it's a design flaw. It's industrial design. They have to just learn how to do it better.
It would improve it, but for the cost of doing that, and to create a better benefit, it might be just better to replace the equipment with waterless urinals, tank toilets, and pre-filled paper towel dispensers. Because it might be cheaper to have absorbing panels on all the walls, but
it wouldn't fix the problem as well, and the absorbing panels will probably not reduce the sound produced by devices that produce sounds over 100 decibels, 50 decibels to the point where it is normally safe.
One of the issues with Nora Louise Keegan's design is that it only lowered it by as much as 11 decibels, which when it gets to the noises that it gets would not help it enough to make it safe. But by replacing it, it would make it much safer.
Look, they have movie theaters where they have toning down the commercials and toning down. They have different showings for people, right? I'm sure you know, where it's quieter and strollers, whatever. And it's not unheard of that the industry changes when they hear this. So
Yeah.
you just have to be connected to the right people. We'll try to help you.
Yes.
Is there anything else you want our listeners to know about what this experience has been like for you before we finish? Any message?
Well, I want to say thank you for letting us on the show, and it has been very fun to share this information to you.
I would like to say that two things. One, we did a lot of testing, and I just like to say, be curious and follow whatever questions you would like to answer in science, but maybe try to listen to your mother when she says, maybe spend less time in washrooms this year.
Right. There's a whole world that smells better outside.
Yes, most definitely.
Listen, thank you so much, Sammy and Leo. It was really an honor to meet you, and I hope that we stay in touch and keep us informed about what comes next.
Thank you.